The right location was extremely important, and the rolling hills that we have here covered with trees is just really a perfect place because it's a long ways away from any activity, so it's quiet, it's secluded. It lends itself well to the privacy that people generally like to have when they contemplate. Right now, the first objective is to develop the campus for the retreat, which is up on a hill overlooking the Platte Valley.
One thing that's really impressed me from the beginning on this project was when Mr. Ricketts said he wants to return this land to God. And that really sent a message to me that what we need to do here, the first and foremost, we need to preserve what God has created and return those resources back to Him.
There's 930 acres of God's creation out here. It's deeper than just sightseeing. It's truly an opportunity to get closer to God. And a lot of that's going to have to do with being closer to God's creation.
You don't go to the store to find the things that you're going to put in a project like this. You can't find them on the shelf. The uniqueness of it is something that really, really excites us.
Everything is extremely high class, and it all has to be perfect, you know, and we understand that. So that's our goal, make it all perfect.
It's a very special project, and I feel privileged that I was selected. I mean, I've worked all over the world, but this one touches me.
Everybody from the architects to the artists to even the engineers and the people behind the scenes to the people that are actually building it. I think leveraging all of their individual skill sets and all of the individual talents that they have is really what makes this project unique and really what makes it successful.
The church here in Omaha that I like is St. Margaret Mary's, so I wanted to replicate the idea behind that church in the architecture.
It's really characterized by a steep pitched roof and pointed arches and kind of sculpted stone details to create, you know, every opening is very special. One of the big ideas was that that the sides could be really open to nature, because the idea is to be able to see the environment around, to see God's creation and be really folded into that.
For the main building, which is sort of a meeting room and the dining room, I hired an architect that had done a resort.
There's a large welcoming living room that's kind of the center where everyone circulates during the day. Plenty of places to meditate. All of the guest rooms on the second level all have views, and they're all first-class guest rooms, 5-star quality.
Part of the idea here in Mr. Ricketts' vision really is that with the 6 different architects is really to create different styles, different experiences for the retreatants who come to stay here. Each building here, when you come back, you'll get to stay at a different lodge that has a different theme to it, a different idea, and so that I think makes it very unique. The fact that there are all those different designers engaged in it.
We want this place to be very calm and settled, to be very simple. We sort of lead, I think, all of what we do in as much simplicity as we can, make it about the pieces and parts that it's made of.
One of the hallmarks of our practice, I guess, is the extent to which we've made the outdoors a part of the living experience of the house. And we sort of blur the line between where the indoors and the outdoors begin and end.
We're celebrating something different here. We're celebrating the spiritual potential of human beings.
We have an opportunity here to create a set of stations that rivals, if not supersedes, anything done in the world. This is not a set of Stations of the Cross you've ever seen. This is a complex group of figures that have connection, have emotion, have motion, there's wind, the level of detail for the authenticity of the costuming and the dress and apparel, and it's done of its time.
A lot of the stations don't seem to pull people in the way I think that ours will. And part of that could be that many of them are sort of two-dimensional. They're in windows, or they're in bas-reliefs, or they're in small stages, and ours is truly walk amongst it. That's what we're creating here.
It's just an exciting thing to be involved in. It's an amazing project, and then working with 9 other sculptors is really interesting. The collaboration part, I think, is going to make this a stronger and more interesting project, to have this many artists and different people approaching it.
Now we're getting together with the landscape architects, because we'll have to work hand in hand with them, so that when we put these pieces in, they'll be situated right for the light and situated right for people as they come across these pieces on the path.
Top-notch, high-grade sculptors, really at the top of their game, doing some of their best life's work in these stations. And I think that the glory that it will bring to God as its main mission is really second to none.
Well, I think the Cloisters on the Platte obviously is going to be an extremely beautiful place. But I really hope the highlight for them when they come will be the retreat itself. The Ignatian retreats that will be at the Cloisters on the Platte will be 3-day silent retreats.
So the importance of the quiet on the Ignatian retreat is critical, otherwise it doesn't work. It helps build character, it brings you an inner calm, it brings people closer to God, and it's very personal.
We're bombarded with so much in our society, and to just be able to stop, meditate, pray, it's really an important part and just really adds to your own tranquility.
Trust how powerful the experience has been in the lives of others. Ask yourself what you really need, and I think each of us will discover in ourselves that we need to be alone with the Lord.
If you have never afforded yourself the luxury to go on an Ignatian retreat, you ought to do it once, to see if it's the kind of thing that really gives you the spiritual fulfillment that you would like.
St. Ignatius developed these spiritual exercises from his own experience of living in a cave over a period of many months. And then he began sharing those experiences with other people. And this was the beginning of the Jesuit order. If I were to sum it up in a few words, I would use a quote from an early Greek bishop called Diadochus. And what he said is this: "The measure of our love for God depends upon how deeply aware we are of God's love for us." And so it's basically a reflection on the whole life of Jesus, but it begins with our need to know Jesus in a more intimate way in order to follow him more closely, in order to attain the goal and purpose of our lives. I've given retreats, preached retreats like this since 1986, and it's wonderful to see how people enter into the retreat, maybe a little nervous, but by Sunday afternoon, there's a sense of, wow, this was so peaceful. I want to do this again, and I want to tell other people about this. I wish everyone would have this experience. The beauty of the silence of retreat is you let go of some of those other connections in order to focus on the most important connection of your life, which is your connection with God. Because the real work of the retreat happens outside the talks. The Holy Spirit is always new and alive and active and touching us in a different way every time we make the retreat. What I find exciting as I think about going there and giving the first retreat that will be at the Cloisters on the Platte, to be part of the group that will be there for the first time is very exciting for me.
There are 4 questions that we all need to answer if we really want to live life to the fullest, if we really want to live every day with passion and purpose. Those 4 questions: who are you? What are you here for? What matters most? And what matters least? I've spent some time with people who live life to the fullest. I've spent some time with people who live every day with passion and purpose, and they've answered these questions. And as a result of answering these questions, they have a personal clarity that most people just don't have. They have a clear sense of who they are and what they're here for and what matters most and what matters least. And that just gives birth to this clarity. And out of this clarity, they get really good at something that most people are really bad at, and that's saying no. Most of us are really bad at saying no. We say yes to stuff all the time that we know we shouldn't be saying yes to, but we're scared of missing out on stuff or whatever else. But when we get really clear about who we are, what we're here for, what matters most, what matters least, we get really good at saying no. And that's a beautiful thing. The problem is, our life's so full of noise, right? How do these people develop this personal clarity? They develop it in the silence. They get themselves into the classroom of silence, because clarity naturally emerges from silence. You know that intuitively. If you're trying to really work something out, chances are you find a quiet place so that you can go deep into that issue and really think about it in the classroom of silence. Clarity emerges from silence. C.S. Lewis was one of the great Christian authors of the 20th century. In 1939, he was asked to write a weekly newspaper column. He chose as the format for his column to write a letter each week. Each letter was from a senior devil to a junior devil, coaching the junior devil how to be a really good devil. In one of the letters, the senior devil criticizes the junior devil for trying to be too creative, trying to come up with all sorts of creative ways to tempt man. Of course, the junior devil, confused about what the plan was. The senior devil essentially says to him, the plan is simple, and that is create so much noise in the world that man can no longer hear the voice of his God. In the end,
we will make the whole universe full of noise. And that's what's happening. And in that noise, we lose ourselves. In that noise, we lose our God.
Wow, 1939. You think about the evolution of noise just in the last 15 years. Walkmans, Discmans, DVD-mans, cell phones, pages, iPods, iPhones, internet. We got so much noise we can't even hear our own thoughts. And how do you imagine that in the midst of all of that noise, you're going to work out who you are and what you're here for and what matters most and what matters least? The answer is you're not. The problem is, most of us are scared of silence. Most of us are afraid of silence. Most of us are pretty uncomfortable in the silence. So the first step is, we've got to learn to be comfortable in the silence. We've got to learn to be comfortable in our own company. Once we learn to be comfortable in the presence of God, that's when we're really ready for life.
The Cloisters on the Platte is a new retreat facility being built on the Platte River south of Gretna. The building that we're looking at right now is the foundation and the steel structure for the chapel, which sits just west of the main building, whose foundation and steel structure are just being put in place. Now, this is a big job. It includes 7 architects, 3 general contractors, many subcontractors, 11 buildings, hundreds of builders, and 10 sculptors. And the purpose of this retreat is to house the 3-day Ignatian retreat. Now, St. Ignatius of Loyola designed his spiritual exercises to bring people closer to God. And indeed it works. I have experienced it. And I often thought, wouldn't it be convenient to have one near Omaha so that other people could more easily afford themselves the luxury of going on an Ignatian retreat? So I can build the facility, but now I need your help. I need to find the people that are interested in this very private and very personal type of prayer. So please come onto our website where you can find a lot more information about the retreat, and more importantly, you can register your interest. Now, for those people who register their interest, we will call upon them when we get the retreat finished to ask them to find a weekend that may be convenient for them to make this type of retreat. So there isn't any commitment. There's only allowing us to know who to call when the facilities are going to be complete. Our website is www.thecloistersontheplatte.com.